All right. So, welcome everyone, and welcome students of intercultural communication. And this is your instructor, Chris, and with me is Ann Priestman and a couple other of our librarians, but Ann's going to be the one who will be facilitating this recorded session. And what this session is for is to get you prepared for the research paper that you're going to be submitting at the end of this semester. Let me just go over the guidelines again, and I'm also going to bring in the example that I provided for you. And of course, you're not going to be able to use the same one for your paper, but let's use it as an example. And I think it'll give you a really good sense of what I'm looking for and what the expectation is. So on the guidelines, from the concepts and questions section at the end of any chapter, select one of the questions that resonate with you. You're going to use that question to complete an essay that explores or explains the topic. You need to bring in an outside, what we call popular source. So that could be a YouTube, a movie, a TV program, political cartoon, a newspaper, a magazine story, a blog, a case study, or another example from our text to illustrate the topic. You're going to explain the context of the outside source, which is called an artifact, and what particular communication aspect you're looking at. For example, I choose Chapter 5, Intercultural Messages, Verbal and Nonverbal Interaction, and I select the question on page 216. That question is, what is meant by the following phrase, people who speak different languages segment their world differently? So in order to explore this particular topic through an essay, I'm going to choose the movie Crash. And that was directed by Haggis, Haggis, that was from 2004. I'm going to select the clip that shows the tensions of shifting from one language to another as Dory, played by Bahar Zumek, interprets for her father Farhad, played by Sean Taub, as he tries to buy a gun from the gun store owner, played by Jack McGee. My goal for this paper would be to interpret one or more of the following: the relationship between language and culture, the importance of language as a reflection of the experiences of that culture, how verbal and nonverbal symbols are rooted in culture, and or how cultural misunderstanding can occur even when people speak the same language. Next, I will search peer-reviewed sources to find two scholarly sources that I can use to explain the cultural communication topic that I have found within the popular article. I will then identify and explain possible motives and outcomes for the behavior I have noted in the artifact, which is the movie clip. So what Ann is going to help you with is she's going to help you, and she's going to show you how to find a peer-reviewed source. Now, I have as part of the example that I provided, I had two peer-reviewed sources. One of them was the article called Gender Roles in Immigrant Families from the Journal of Comparative Family Studies. And the other one is a journal article titled Immigrant Family Strengths, Meeting Communication Challenges from the Journal of Family Issues. But what we're going to do in this session is we're going to find two totally different sources. So Ann's going to be able to show you how to find those and how to do the search. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Ann. So there you go.
Okay, welcome to the ACC Library and Learning Commons. I'm going to go through a little bit of everything because I don't know where you're all coming from in your knowledge base of our resources. So I'm going to do a little bit of everything, but we're going to spend a lot of our time trying to totally understand what a peer-reviewed journal article is and how to find them. So we're going to start here on our home page. You could go to any arapahoe.edu website. You're always going to see a library tab at the top. So you see a nice search box, kind of looks like Google. I'm going to suggest you use this when you want books. The only time I would use this for articles is when you know the exact title. For example, if you were looking up the article that she mentioned called Immigrant Family Strength, Meeting Communication, if I was looking for that specific article, I would put it in quotes and look for it here. Otherwise, I'm going to suggest you use the Articles and Database tab. But for books, this is a great place to get started. So if we want to start here with something about cultural communication, I'm going to put cultural communication in quotes. I'm putting it in quotes because I want that phrase to stay together. So we're going to see what books we have here in the library on cultural communication. So here's, you see symbols. This looks a lot like maybe an Amazon page, lots of faceting on the left-hand side, lots of pictures. So we're getting a lot of ebooks, which are going to be really helpful for the online learners. But first I'm going to show you if you wanted a print book, and then we'll come back and look at ebooks. We would look up here, and here's Diversity in Early Care and Education, a book about interpersonal communication up at the top. So just to show you this book, this is showing you that the book's available. This is where it's located, BF area in the library. If you were at another campus, we could actually send this book to you. You would just say, place a hold at ACC, you want to pick it up at Parker or Castle Rock, and we would send this book over to you. I do want to show you that this database, as well as all of our databases, are going to show you how to cite the information. So we're going to click on Cite. And are you using APA, Chris?
We are. We're using APA. Thank you for asking. So yeah, this is going to be important for you because at the end of this essay that you're going to be writing, then you will need to cite the sources that you are using, and you need to make sure that the citation format is perfect.
So this is the citation, and actually this one looks pretty good. Notice it's not indented, but don't worry about that. From the very start of your project, I'd go ahead and start collecting all your citations, copy and paste them into a Word document. Then before you're ready to finish it, then proof them, and proof them thoroughly because they make errors. They capitalize titles, they transpose names, so proof them thoroughly, then indent them, and then sort them alphabetically.
And one of the things that I've done as part of that research paper in the checklist that you've got there, I've given you a couple of links to Purdue OWL, that's Purdue University Online Writing Lab, and they have created vidcasts and posted them on YouTube so that you can see, and I've given you the direct link so that they literally give you a little movie about how to create that reference page so you know what the source is supposed to look like. So you can essentially take the information that you're getting from this library site and then plug it into another page, then look at the vidcast and make sure that the formatting is exact.
Great. So we're going to come back and look at an ebook now, just in case you've never looked at one. We have 160,000 ebooks, so that's a huge number of books. We only have 30,000 books in the entire hard copy collection. So we can really afford to have a lot more current electronic information. Plus, you can all use these from home since you're online learners. So if we go back and look at some of these titles, here's Translation and Cultural Identity, some select essays. All you would have to do is click on this book, come here and view the book. Move that up here. Open the PDF of the book. And here it is, page by page. You can go page by page. I really like to look at the table of contents. I think this is an important thing. These are all going to be nonfiction academic books, so you probably don't need the whole book, just certain chapters. So you might look through here and try to find the areas that you need. The really nice thing in our online books is you can search within these. If you see this up at the top next to contents, if you do search within and we try the term misunderstanding, every time that word appears, it's only twice, but nevertheless, you're going to get right to that spot right in the book. And here's your misunderstanding right here. In this database, as in all of our databases, you're going to have these same kind of options. You can add to a folder, you can save pages, you can email pages. Most important is going to be this word cite again. Just scroll down a little bit, copy and paste your APA citation into your Word document.
Yeah. And one of the things that I want to point out is that even though this book and these essays are written by scholars, this is not considered to be a peer-reviewed source. However, this might work really well just for background information and what you're looking at, or it could also serve as your popular source. So just to keep that in mind, because we're going to get into in just a minute, we're going to talk a little bit more about what a peer-reviewed source is and how that is different from a book.
So when you're really looking for more detailed information, you really want to come to this articles and database page. And we have laid this page out the same way you're going to approach any research project. You need to find a topic. You need to find background information on that topic in order to narrow it and figure out what words to use. And then you can come down and look at some scholarly and popular sources to back up or give evidence to your position. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but a little bit of time here on finding the topic. You might need this for another class. We have some really good resources, but keep in mind these are not peer-reviewed. Very important, not peer-reviewed. But what they are is they're a great place to get ideas and to figure out where you want to take your argument and what keywords you want to use. And they're all written in very plain, simple English, so they're easy to read through. CQ Researcher is scholarly. It stands for Congressional Quarterly, but again, not peer-reviewed. So you could just browse by topic, or we could actually just put in the title up here, maybe something like multiculturalism. So let's click on this and see what we have. You could put any term in here just to see what kind of research has been done. So here's Europe's immigration turmoil, European migration crisis, European unrest. All of this would have something to do with communication, actually, in some respects. But I'm going to show you just real briefly, document not found. Okay, I won't show you that one real briefly. We're going to look at the European migration crisis because this is a problem and it really has a lot to do with multiculturalism and it's very current. So this is going to give us an introduction of multiculturalism and the European migration crisis specifically. It gives charts and graphs. The nice thing in this database is it asks questions like, does Europe need more immigrants? Then it addresses that question. And what you really need to do when you do a paper is ask a question and then try to answer it. So this could be really helpful. Or, should Europe use military tactics to prevent human smuggling? They're big questions to ask and answer. Then it's going to give you background on the topic. It'll talk about the current situation. It'll talk about the outlook for the future, a pro and con, nice chronology of the whole immigration situation with some short articles, and at the very end it'll show you how to cite it. This is APA right here. If you needed to change it for another class, you could change it here. And this is good to know. They tell you something about the author. So this adds some credibility to the database and to this article that they're telling us some information about the article. So I think that's really helpful. Going back to our articles and database pages, I'll briefly show you points of view and issues and controversies. When you're working on anything controversial, these are great databases because what they're going to do is they're going to show you both sides. And you really need to understand both sides of an issue when you're going to take a stance and try to support it. So again, we could look by various topics here. Maybe animal experimentation interests you, or the Big Bang Theory. But let's just try multiculturalism again. So again, multiculturalism, an overview or counterpoint. Multiculturalism will segregate society, culturally, and economically. That's interesting. Let's see what this does. So what this is going to do is it's going to show us one side of multiculturalism as segregating society culturally and economically, and then the opposite viewpoint. So just a little background on it, again, written in simple English with references, and we'll talk more about references and bibliographies. It's going to give you the same options all of our databases do. You can add it to a folder, print this. You want to email this to yourself or any of these. Just be sure you pick your citation style so it comes along with it and email it to yourself.
And when you do the email, this doesn't have to be your school email.
That's
so it
right.
can be if you've got a Gmail or something like that. The other interesting thing about this particular article that we just looked at is that you have the option on some of these that you can listen to them. So if you're more of an auditory listener, if it helps you to listen to it, and if you would just show them briefly how they do that.
I will.
Back to you. Okay.
Here's your APA citation, but since this does give us that ability, let's just go back or down as it is. So we're going to do listen and give it a minute. It will depend how long the article is. Okay, it doesn't want to talk to us for some reason.
This does happen.
This could be because it's in WebEx and we're not online in the same mode.
Oh, okay. That makes a lot of sense.
But you
All
do
right.
have an option to change accent. So if you're looking for something scholarly, you might try the British accent. You can also download this to an MP3 player, and you could listen to this coming to school.
Perfect.
So some nice options. Back to our articles and database page. Issues and controversies does the same type of thing, so I won't spend a lot more time. Another good database to find topics would be the Access World News, but it's just looking at newspapers, and they're not peer-reviewed. So we're going to move on. I'm going to show you Credo briefly. What this is a database that looks at very specialized encyclopedias. So again, it's not peer-reviewed, but it has some kind of interesting attributes. First of all, if we put in multiculturalism, and see what kind of information we get. We're getting in the political, philosophy, A to Z data, encyclopedia, dictionary of sociology, the encyclopedia of social and cultural anthropology. So you can see the type of interesting sources we're getting. So we're going to click.
And this is really important to understand that when you're writing a paper and you're talking about a particular term, that you define your definition of how you're using this term. And this is where you can use this particular source to find out. So whether it's intercultural communication or cross-cultural communication or multiculturalism, go someplace and find a source, find a definition that you agree with, and use that and make sure that you cite that source. And you can see Anne is showing you right now how to find the APA source citation at the bottom of the page.
And of course, you're going to have those same type of options that you can email this to yourself, print it, and of course the citation was down at the bottom. This database does one other interesting thing. It has what is called a mind map. So you can take a term like multiculturalism, and we're going to try a mind map. So we're going to try culture. We're going to be more general. So you can take a term like culture, and what this does is it takes a term and then it gives lots of relationships to other words. And the larger the print, the closer it is in relationship to that term. So if we want to take culture and anthropology, and notice over here on the right-hand side, you're going to see lots of explanation of culture. If you use click on anthropology, then it's going to take anthropology as related to culture and give you some short articles or information. So what it does is it allows you to kind of brainstorm some other terms you might want to use. What about language? Let's see what language does, just out of curiosity. Oh, I can't believe there's not one for language. Okay, English language.
I've got to narrow it, okay.
Yeah, but it still relates to Romance languages, English languages, German languages, history of the English language, This is what a mind map really is. So it's just an interesting addition. We're going to go back to articles and databases, and now we're going to start looking at articles to support our position. So we have two different databases. We have Academic Search and we have ProQuest. They're very similar, but they lay the information out differently and they index different journals. I tend to find that Academic Search might have more in the sciences. I'm thinking ProQuest might be better when you're going to relate it to a movie. But we're going to look at both of them for different reasons. We'll start with Academic Search Complete. And on this one, I'm going to try a different term. I'm going to try cultural differences, and I'm going to put cultural differences in quotes. And that's because I want that phrase to stay together. And I'm also going to make it a subject search. So I'm narrowing my focus here to make something very specific. And now we're getting to something pretty basic, but I want to just talk about Boolean searching briefly. So we're looking at cultural differences, but we might want to limit this by maybe our misunderstandings in cultural. So the and is going to let us narrow it. There are times when you really want to expand your search, like if you were doing a paper on teenagers, you might not know if they use the term teenager or adolescent. We could do cultural differences or multiculturalism and misunderstandings. And the not is going to let you eliminate some information. If you're doing something and you suddenly start getting book reviews or obituaries or something totally irrelevant, you can come back and do not book reviews. So we're going to start with cultural differences, and I'm going to try misunderstandings. Or I'm going to say misunderstandings, singular. Now we're going to look at scholarly journals. This is the button that you're going to click to limit something to scholarly. And we're going to search this, and we might come back and talk more specifically about peer-reviewed. So we have 6 items, but I was pretty specific here. It had to be cultural differences as a phrase, it had to be a subject term, and it had to include misunderstanding. And it had to be scholarly. And this is pretty good because you see this is going from 2008 to 2014. We could narrow it, but we've already been pretty specific. In this database, it's kind of nice. You can hover over this magnifying glass, and then you can see a summary or abstract of the article to see if this is what you're looking for. So
one of the things that I really like about this one, too, if I can interrupt for just a sec, is take a look at the different journals that are coming up. Journal of Cultural Diversity. Let's see, Journal of Sustainable Tourism, Japanese Journal of Personality. I mean, there's all sorts of genres of different academic journals out there that have these peer-reviewed sources in them. So I think whatever you want to take a look at, you're going to find something that's really going to fascinate you. And perhaps you find something in one particular journal, like this one, the Journal of Cultural Diversity. Gee, how relevant is that to what we're looking at in any of these topics in any of the chapters? You might want to just explore that journal on its own.
Exactly. I'm going to show you that. So I copied the title of that journal, and we'll come back to that. But let's go ahead and open up one of these first. I'm actually going to look at this one, the development of cross-cultural misunderstanding through volunteer tourism. Well, okay. So one of the things I like in this database is the subject terms, the way they put them at the very top to give you, and this gives us a whole different term, cross-cultural differences. We were looking at multicultural. You'll find that these different databases will use different subject terms and keywords, and you want to try to find out which are the best ones. So this is really good that this is finding that for us. So here's our abstract. We want to look at the full text. We're going to click on the PDF. And here is our article, keywords, introduction. I'm going to scroll on down here just to bring us down to references. References can be really important because once you find one really good document, you might find references there that you want to track down. And that's the same reason that you have references in your paper, is people might read your paper and decide they want to track down that same type of information. So it's very important. You might find a really good article here. This is an instance when if I wanted one of these titles, I would copy it and paste it in that main search box on the first page and see if we have it. If we don't, then I'd come back and click on Interlibrary Loan, which I'll try to show you towards the end, and put the title in there, and it comes to me, I do Interlibrary Loan, and we'll try to track down that article.
And one other thing, too, is that when you find an article like this that has references, that is one of the key ways of determining if it truly is a peer-reviewed source. It is a scholarly article, there's no doubt about that, but peer review means that it has been reviewed by other experts in the field, and typically having references at the end of the article is a really good indicator that this is a peer-reviewed source. You'll also notice the different areas in here. They have kind of different parts of the article, different labels, the role of sending organizations, and as Ann is scrolling up, we're going to take a look at some other things. Okay, breaking or reinforcing cultural stereotypes, and appreciative inquiry, cross-cultural misunderstanding. So in that part, they're going to give you definitions of understandings, and in it has an introductions section, and probably if we scroll all the way up, it's going to have an abstract. And even though it isn't labeled as an abstract, the abstract is this author-written. Essentially, it's an overview of what the article is about.
On the right-hand side, we're going to have these same kind of options. You can print this. You could email this to yourself right here. And the word cite, APA, is right here. Just copy and paste. I want to go back and show you that I had copied the title of another publication. And if you find a really good publication, what you might do is try putting the title in this first line. Oh, I thought I copied it. Let's try again. Journal of Cultural Diversity. That's the one I'm trying to find. Okay, we'll type it in. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go to the right-hand side and we're going to say we want the journal title. Oops, that's in the other database. I think I could do JN : We're going to try this and see if it works.
Yes. And there's a typo on that first line of journal.
Do it. That'll do it. Thank you.
Yeah. One of the things that I want you all as students to understand, that searching the academic databases is not like doing a Google search. It's not going to anticipate and say, well, did you mean to say this or that? You've really got to be exact every time you enter information in.
Let's see if there'll be anything on multiculturalism in the Journal of Cultural Diversity. So there we are. We did find that SO is going to be the abbreviation for our journal, and put the name of the journal in there, multiculturalism. So once you find a really good journal, you might want to think about using that option. I'm not going to try to show you crash in this database. We're going to go on to the EBSCOhost because I think this one will have a little more options for us. So now we're going to look at ProQuest. And in this database, then, we're going to try to start looking at Crash, the movie. So I'm going to say Crash in the first line. I'm even going to, I wonder if it'll be, I'm going to try Crash Film, and then I'm going to try Haggis.
Yeah, because he's the producer.
So I'm using my Boolean operator to try to limit this, and now this is where we're going to limit something to peer-reviewed and or scholarly. Ooh. Sometimes I'll tell you that it's very difficult to find something peer-reviewed about a movie. If that's the case, then what you're going to want to do is do your peer-reviewed requirement for your concepts of multiculturalism or language or misunderstandings, and you're going to want to use your popular sources for the movie. But we found some. Here's Racial Privacy in an Ensemble Film and Paul Haggis's Crash. So we came up with 35 items. That's pretty good for peer-reviewed items.
It's really good.
So here is the HTML. If you want the full text, you're going to go over here. Here's the full text. So when there are pictures and graphics, those are all going to appear in a PDF. And you go, this is a lengthy article. And then here's the works cited page. So again, you might find some other resources that would relate really well. And at the very top, you're going to see these same types of options. You can download the PDF. You want the citation, go right in here. This is APA, just copy and paste. You can also email this to yourself. Again, just be sure that you pick the APA format and then add any email address you need to. You can also print this, or more options like saving to a PDF or rich text or something. So I'm surprised we got that many. That was really good. So we can limit that further if we needed to. Crash Film and Haggis. And if you want to just continue on, you can always capital AND to do and, or capital OR to do or. Most databases use the capitalized version of and or to allow you to type in a string. So we can say and culture. And that narrowed it down a little bit to 27. So you have lots of options to narrow this. This shows you that they're images, so that gives you an idea. There are going to be a lot of graphics along with it. That's pretty nice. You might want to include those. Gran Torino. It's a little harder with something like Crash just because it isn't an unusual title or name, so that we really need to limit things more with Haggis and culture. Chris, do we want to talk a little bit about what a peer-reviewed journal is?
Yes, let's go ahead and do that.
I'm going to show you from I want to go back to our articles and database page. We do have an area called Research, Help, and Tutorials, and we have some really helpful things. And one of them is information on popular and scholarly material. So this explains what a peer-reviewed journal is. And I like this little diagram that kind of gives you a picture of the process. Which is, do you want to discuss it, or do you want me to discuss it?
I'll let you discuss it, because you're the expert.
All right. Well, in this case, a specialist in a field, like a scientist, will submit a paper to a very specialized journal. So it's going to be very subject-specific. So he sends this off to the editor, and the editor sends this to about maybe 5 or 6 of his peers that are also experts in the same discipline. Then they review it for accuracy and details and data, and they send it back, and it goes back maybe 5 or 6 times before it's ready for publication. So actually, it takes probably a year or more. I know Chris has been through this process.
I have.
And then it's finally ready for publication. So it's different than something that's scholarly. So something like Scientific American or The Economist, they're very scholarly publications, but they have not been through this really peer review or refereed process. Even though they might be talking about the article, it's not the original article itself that's doing this research.
Right, and keep in mind that scientists can be social scientists, so communication scholars are social scientists, psychologists do studies, and it really takes a long time to go through, because first of all, you have to determine what is it that you're going to study. You have to write up your study, you have to figure out how you're going to collect the data, and then you write everything up, and then you put it together as an article, and then you send it in. And as Ann said, I had an article that I started working on. There were 2 other authors in it. I started working on that in when was it? December, I think, of 2010, and we eventually got it published in May of 2012. It was just really long. So what it means, though, is it means a peer review process is kind of the gold standard of finding research. So it's something that you can cite knowing it's original research and that other people are going to rely upon it. Essentially, it's your way of saying, I've done the research, I know what's out there, I know that this is relevant to my topic, and here is why. So that's why you have to find and use 2 peer-reviewed sources to support whatever the topic is for your final paper.
Great. Okay, do you want me to show them newspapers just to look at our database?
Yes, let's absolutely do that.
Okay, now the advantage of newspapers is that they are published, so it's a matter of scrolling down the same article and database pages, and we get to access world news. What's nice about this database is it searches newspapers around the world. So if you were doing any type of global issue, you could actually search certain countries. So here's a map, for example. So if you were doing Ebola in Africa, you could just click on this African map, see what African newspapers are available, search them all or just a few of them, and actually get the African perspective, perhaps on Ebola. You also could look at just the Denver Post. So if you wanted to do a local issue like the water problems down in Los Animas, you might want to look at the Denver Post. I tend to look at the whole USA, except I'm going to do world in this case because we are talking about multiculturalism and the world. So let's do the world. And when I search this database, I change from all text to leader first paragraph. And that's because if the information is not in the leader first paragraph, it's not very pertinent probably. So we're going to search multiculturalism again. Multiculturalism, I don't have to put that in quotes, but I'm going to. And I'm going to, in the leader first paragraph, put language. And see what we come up with. Oh, add a row. Well, let's search instead. So we have 475 items. You'll notice February 26th. This is the one database that searches most recent first unless you change it. And you could change that over here as you can change all the other databases to be more current. But this is database you usually use because you're looking for trends or some really current information. So here's immigration, multi-ethnic country and high level of human development, tolerance, a lesson in Be Drawn. Maybe we all need a little tolerance. So here's our article. They've highlighted the terms really nicely. You have these same options again to add it, print it, save it, cite it. Just come down to, up to APA. And it's really hidden up here, but it's up at the top here if you can see where I've highlighted. So that's newspapers. I really like the fact that it's very current and very easy to use. I'm going to go back to our main article and database page, go back to research help now, and I want to talk a little bit about internet searching. And to do this, I first want to talk a little bit about evaluating. We have a couple of different ways to evaluate. We have a nice checklist here when you're evaluating any kind of resource, whether it's a journal, a book, or a website. But CRAP test is something that's really just for websites. And we also have a link to some information if you're doing scientific evaluation. But we're going to look at the CRAP test because I want to talk a little bit about searching Google next. So what we want to think about are the CRAP elements, like currency. How current is the information? When was it last posted or updated? And most important, how are the links still working? How often are you on a website and the links don't work anymore? That's not a good sign. Relevancy is important. Does this really answer your question or meet your needs? And who is the audience for the website? Maybe the most important item is authority. Who's writing the article and who's publishing the website? You might be surprised sometimes who the publisher really is. So I suggest you look maybe at that little link that says About Us and see who's publishing the source. And accuracy. Are you seeing spelling and grammar errors? Can you verify any of the information? Is there any evidence? And the last thing to think about when you're looking at websites is the purpose. Are they trying to sell you something or are they trying to inform you? So, that said, we're going to look at Google. I'm assuming that all of you use Google. It's been a year since somebody has said they use something besides Google. So in Google, I really suggest you put phrases in quotes if you need to. So if we were going to say something like maybe cultural differences, I would put cultural differences in quotes. But you could even use your or by putting it in quotes, or not in quotes, pardon me, a parentheses, a capital O-R, or multiculturalism. So you can totally Boolean search in Google. So this is using the or. When we want to use an and language, we're just say language. But the really interesting thing in Google, you want to do not, so maybe we want to do not Canada. Maybe that's what we're not interested in. Sorry. Not.
Yeah. So here you can see where Google goes. Is this what you meant? So yeah, that's what we meant.
That it understands what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So language and multiculturalism. So you can totally Boolean search. You're automatically and you can do the minus system. But something I really want to point out to the students is that you can limit your searching to certain kinds of websites. We know that a .com is a commercial site. They're selling us something. We know that a .org is an organization, so they're selling us an idea, which can be really great if you're doing something maybe with cancer. However, a lot of instructors think if you limit your searching to government or educational sites, you're getting better data. So you can just do site:.gov or .edu, and then you're going to get information from government or educational sites. You can go a step further, and maybe you only want the National Institute of Health. You could go back and do nih.gov, and you're only going to get information from the National Institute of Health. I also suggest at this point, when you're looking for statistics, maybe to back up your point of view, you just add statistics to the search. And anymore, I think that the government is going to be one of your best places to get good statistics. Should we look at Google Scholar, Chris?
Yeah, let's go ahead and take a brief look at Google Scholar.
Scholar.google.com. If anybody hasn't used this, it has the good attribute of Google that it understands common language. So our databases are going to require you to use the right terms. Google, because of the algorithm, seems to understand common language, which can be really helpful. I frequently use it when I'm trying to figure out what keywords I do want to use. But if we're going to try cultural communication, no.
Let's go back to multiculturalism.
You like that one?
Try that one? Yeah, I do.
So we're going to say multiculturalism and language. I like misunderstanding.
Yep.
So the important thing to pay attention to is this right-hand side. Wherever you see something on the right-hand side, you're going to actually see that full article, and it's right here at your fingertips. Wherever you don't see it, like the second one down, that means it's going to be abstract only, or you're going to have to pay for the item. It also has some other nice things. You could get the citation right here, but I'm going to say, here's your APA, you do want to proof it. It's not going to be 100% accurate every time, especially in Google. But it's going to give you the components. The other nice thing, it tells you how many times it's been cited. This one's been cited 17 times. This one's 134 times. That might tell you that that author is a little more reputable or a little more in demand. They also have, if you find one really good article, here's a place you could click for related articles. You have another option that's kind of interesting in Google Scholar. You notice on the second page here it says ProQuest. ProQuest is one of our databases. When you're on the campus here and you search Google Scholar, it automatically searches our databases. So this takes you right into our ProQuest article. If you wanted to set this up to be able to do on your own computer, you could do that. You can do that by going to scholar.google.com again, go up to the settings spoke. You can click on this, go to library links, and type in Arapahoe Community College. Most of you are probably not on our campus. Just type this in, click all the boxes, and then do save on your own device. And from then on, when you search Google Scholar on your device, it'll search our databases. All you'd need to open them would be your S number, which is the same S number you use to get into any of our databases off campus. So that's Google Scholar. I'm going to go back and show you just a couple of things on our main website that might be helpful. So this is going to walk you through the process of getting into our website, hopefully. Again, click on the Library tab at the top. And I want to point out the Cited button. Chris talked about Purdue Online Writing Lab, and we have some really nice links for you. We have a link to Purdue Online Writing Lab. I think you'll go through this more in class. There's also one I really like called Valencia College. What I like about this one is when you're looking at electronic or unusual formats, it will show you nicely in a color-coded manner how to cite things. So this shows you, for example, how to cite an APA website when there is an author and then when there's not an author. It also shows you how to do in-text citation for a website. So this can be a nice, fast little tool for you.
Yeah, and keep in mind that this is going to be excellent information for any sort of a paper or project that you're doing in any of the other classes. And why don't you go ahead and show us now how to contact the librarian and then also how to set up a one-on-one session, because for this particular class, since we're not scheduling synchronous sessions where everybody's going to log in and do a library session, you're going to need to watch this particular recorded session, and then you're also going to have to set up your own appointment with a librarian. You can do that online, or you can do it in person. And my recommendation is you try to do it with a couple of people, 2 or 3 people at a time. Just make it a little bit easier on the librarian, but Ann will show you how to do that.
You can call us right here at this phone number. You can email us at librarians, or you can book a time with Oliver or myself right here where it says book a librarian. You just put in your name, email, when you can get together. And if you can't come here in person, then what we can do is set up a WebEx like we're doing now. We send you the link. You click on the link and you can see our screen, and we can walk through the process with you.
Yeah, it works beautifully.
Right. We also have a technology librarian who's going to be gone for 3 months. Nevertheless, she or one of us can help you. If you need some help with a PowerPoint, you need to know how to embed a video, or maybe you need to do some charts in an Excel, we can help you set up, you can set up a time and we can help you with that. And finally, we belong to something called Ask Academic, which is a consortium of academic libraries throughout Colorado that provide reference service 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So if it's Sunday and you need another item, you could just say, I need a peer-reviewed article on You don't even have to spell it right. They'll know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And then go ahead and enter, and this will go to a librarian like myself who will find something on our website and